Richard C. Hoagland is a former Space Science Museum curator, former NASA consultant during the historic Apollo missions to the moon, science advisor to Walter Cronkite in CBS News. Richard has been leading an outside scientific team in a critically acclaimed independent analysis of possibly intelligently designed artifacts on Mars. Now, in the last several years, he and his team's investigations have been extended to include over 30 years of previously hidden data from NASA, Soviet, and Pentagon missions to the moon. Now, Richard C. is in Florida, near Coral Castle, and he's with us this hour. Richard, how are you?
If I was any nearer to Coral Castle, George, I'd be in Coral Castle. I'm literally sitting on the southern side within about 50 feet of the south turret that Leeds Scowlin built from the 1920s to the 1940s, single-handedly. To this day, no one really knows how he did it. 1 5-foot guy, 90 pounds, no major equipment, no help, no crew, no cranes, no nothing. And I'm sitting in front of 1,100 tons of coral limestone that is making the experiment tonight that we're here to conduct go absolutely crazy.
Why have you picked tonight as it is so close to the Venus transit, Mr.
Well,
Hoagland?
it is the Venus transit. The times you read from AP are wrong. We just started the transit of Venus. Now, obviously, here in Florida, it's a little after 1:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and the Sun and Venus are on the opposite sides of the Earth. I have a computer program I use often called Redshift, and we're able to actually, use this program and give ourselves a synthetic view of what the Europeans and the Africans and the Indians are seeing on the day side of the Earth, which is halfway around the planet right now.
Right.
For them, the transit started a few minutes ago. For us, it started at 1:08 our time. So as you were doing the lead-in to our discussion tonight, it literally started what's called first contact, when the edge of the sphere of Venus just kissed the edge of the much bigger sphere of the Sun, which is something like 100 million miles behind it.
Now, when will people in the United States be able to start seeing this?
Not until dawn. And the only way, obviously, you can see it is by looking at the sun at sunrise. Do not look at the sun without protection. You don't want to look with the naked eye. You don't want to use things like welder's glasses. You have to be very, very careful because you can lose your vision without even feeling any pain. There's no nerves in your eyes to tell you that you're going to go permanently blind. So do not stare at the sun unless you have appropriate optical assistance. Watch it on television. Watch it on the internet. There's all kinds of cameras. If you've got very dense polarized glasses or something like a density 35 or more ND filter, then that would be safe. But you've got to be super careful. Don't let your kids do it. This is as dangerous, if not more so, than total eclipses of the sun by the moon, because people obviously don't normally look at the sun, and during an event like this, they're going to want to. But you got to take very special precautions, otherwise you can be in permanent trouble. What we're doing is we're looking at it with a totally different kind of detector. What I have here, literally in Coral Castle, George, in the turret, which is the castle-like building, two-story building on the southern western edge of this campus.
Right.
I have a vibrating tuning fork, vibrating at 360 cycles per second. And what I've got is I've got it hooked up to a very long 150-some foot of wire and then into a computer program in the laptop that I have sitting out here in the patio outside the visitor center. And for the last several hours, we have been recording moment by moment by moment the transients in the tuning fork frequency as Venus approached the sun. And as I said, it just kissed it a couple of minutes ago.
Explain to us what this experiment means to you and to so many people, because there's just tremendous enthusiasm about this entire episode of this Venus transit.
Well, what got me started was I heard some statements that, the last transit took place 122 years ago when Venus crossed the sun as seen from the Earth, most of North America, in 1882. So we haven't had an event like this for anyone's living memory. Literally, there's no person we know that's alive on Earth now that saw the transit of Venus in 1882. There has been an extraordinary progress of science between then and now, and the statement was made many times in the last several months that, well, although this is a kind of an awesome event and once in a lifetime, actually it's twice in a lifetime because the next one will occur as a double pair in December of 2012. An interesting coincidence, wouldn't you say, George?
Oh, yes, indeed, Richard.
Our favorite date between us and our few million intimate friends. Anyway, they were saying there was no science to be done, and I said, wait a minute, that is wrong. Because in the hyperdimensional physics that I've been looking at, stemming from our work at Sidonia on Mars so many years ago, if this event is what we think it is in the hyperdimensional model, then all kinds of things should hit the fan as Venus, spinning backward every 243 days, crosses the disk of the sun geometrically, spinning forward once every 27 days. So I decided that I wanted to measure the possible inertial change of a tuning fork, the mass change of a tuning fork responding to the physics in a wave-like phenomenon. Then I had to decide where to do it. My first choice was to go to Giza, to Egypt. We'd be having this conversation with me in Egypt tonight, if that was, in the cards.
Right.
And I decided after talking with some people that are travel experts, they said, you do not want to go to Egypt in June now. It is too hot. Plus, it's a bigger plane flight and a slight amount more money than we had available for this expedition.
Understand.
So my second choice was Coral Castle, because Leeds Skellman said many times that he used the same techniques to build this structure behind me that the Egyptians used, the ancient Egyptians used to build the pyramid itself. So I figured if I could find some measurable effects of the transit on the physics of Coral Castle, then we can extrapolate from what Leeds Skellman said on the record that, in fact, they probably also obtained if we were to do this at Giza. And in the next, 8 years, George, you and I will go to Giza and we'll do that one.
Now, if I hear that over the next several hours you are floating some of these stones down there at Coral Castle.
You will not believe that unless you get confirmation with photographs, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
However, we do appear to have solved one interesting mystery. This guy, there have been several people who've written some books on this guy. The one is your friend and mine, Joe Bullard,
right,
who wrote this interesting novel that I've had a chance to read partially, and I got interested, obviously, because I heard you interview him on the show a few months ago. He has some very interesting extrapolations based on sources that I'm not sure of yet as to Leeds Skellman's life, why he came here, why he picked, Homestead, Florida, this latitude, which is about 25 degrees, 30 minutes north latitude. We're sitting on this enormous bed of natural limestone, this oolitic limestone, this coral limestone, which extends, miles beneath us and hundreds of miles in all directions. I mean, this is an extraordinary bed into the planet of this particular material that I feel, because the pyramid was built out of it, was picked to resonate with the hyperdimensional physics that we're trying to measure. So this is the perfect place. Well, we've been measuring for the last few days, and up until last night, we thought we were on track, and then we had, George, a total disaster.
What happened?
Because last night we were setting up the test to do the measurements and to get ready to do the show tonight, and this place, for some reason, literally blew up the sensor. It went off scale, it went asymptotic, it went through the roof, it vibrated itself to death, and we had a basic problem with less than 24 hours to solve it, which is how do I find another tuning fork sensor in the Miami area in time to get on with the show and get on with the experiment. That all got solved by mid-afternoon. We've been up and running since mid-afternoon. We've got extraordinary data. We've got one frame of data on the web. If you go to enterprisemission.com, you will see a picture of Coral Castle. If you click on that, it will take you to a full frame of the data we got earlier this evening. And we're getting, on a 360 hertz tuning fork, George, we were getting excursions of over 10 cycles per second in a weird harmonic sinusoidal irregular pattern. Up, down, up, down. And the normal background fluctuation of this tuning fork is 2/100th of a cycle per second.
What
so
a big
whatever
difference.
this thing is doing, it's amplified the effects by over 1,000 times that we'd record if we were in New Mexico getting the baseline data I was getting a few weeks ago.
I was going to say, Richard, do you think you would get unusual readings at Coral Castle regardless of when you were down there, or do you think it's all tied into the Venus transit?
I think it's regardless of when we're down here, and I think we're going to be able to prove that because we're